Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation With. I'm your host, David Batsoffen, and today I'm joined all the way from Israel from the very first time by the co-author of this book, Roy Isacowitz. Roy, good morning. Welcome to you.
Morning.
High times indeed.
Yeah.
So let's just go back to your co-author and let's get that out of the way. Jeremy was murdered during the latter part of this book. Am I correct?
No, during the early part. Very little
the...
had been written at the time that Jeremy was killed. Yes.
Right. Which is really sad. Was that murder ever solved?
To the best of my knowledge, not. And I'm close to the family. I'm pretty sure I would have heard had it been.
Right. Okay. So you then continued with the book, and tell me why the extraordinary life of a Joburg dope smuggler. And this was Michael, is it Medjuck? Is that how he pronounces his surname?
Medjuck, yes, Medjuck.
Who started life here at King David. He was head boy, and then
vice head boy. Yes.
Vice head boy. Sorry, vice head boy. Why am I doing everything wrong this morning? Forgive me. I have read the book. Vice head boy of King David. He then decided to hive himself off to pastures new and green, and I use green specifically, and become the world's biggest hash dealer. I mean,
I'm not sure that it was the world, but certainly North America is probably the case, yes.
What made him want to do that?
I guess a surfeit of dope and a love of money.
But now he could have just gone on to be a dope dealer. I mean, he could have sold to his friends.
Well, that's how he started, but he was just incredibly successful at it.
I suppose if you look at it as a retail business, Roy, then it is. You know, that's all it is.
It's very much a retail business, absolutely. And people, it's a rare person who doesn't want to do better than they're doing.
But it's always of interest to me, and I think it's still a phenomenon worldwide, why they just don't tax all these drugs. The government's concerned would make an inordinate amount of money, and it would be legalized, and then it wouldn't be sort of under the counter. It would be brought out into mainstream, and perhaps the drugs would be better, if you know what I mean. And kids would.
It's happening around the world right now, but it wasn't happening in the 1980s when Michael was at his peak.
So what got you interested in Michael? Did you and Jeremy wake up one morning and go, hey, we should write a book about a drug smuggler?
No, I've known Michael for a long, long time. He was in grade 2, second grade at King David Linksfield when I was in grade 1. So, you know, when we were 7. We weren't close at all, but we were aware of each other. And 10 years ago in 2014, a few months after he finally got out of jail, he came to visit Israel, and we renewed our friendship. And I, at the time, was just retiring from or ending my journalistic career to write books. And it struck me as being an interesting book. It took both of us a long time until we sort of got it together where we were both free enough to do it. But eventually we did it. So I did it purely out of interest because I thought it was a great story.
Well, it is indeed, because it involves everybody, FBI, CIA, you name it. You put alphabetic letters together, they were involved.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what was interesting, if you sort of at the beginning of the book, when the drama at high sea, on the high seas, what is that? 7 tons of hash he was trying to bring.
72
sorry,
of hash.
Yeah, and then they don't.
The largest bust ever in the United States.
I wonder if you can get a Guinness Book of World Records for that.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
thought about that. I never took it further, but yeah, it could be.
could be, who knows? But if you read that part of the book and you realize that I don't think they had much practice at moving that sort of tonnage from one ship to another in the middle of the ocean, with raging seas all around. I'm amazed both ships didn't sink.
Yeah, they had done it several times before, but for some reason they decided to do this. Usually they did it in the coves north of
Yeah.
Vancouver. Quite why they decided to do it in the middle of the Pacific is never clear to me, but it didn't go well.
Indeed, it did not. Um, and then he decides to fly into the States where he eventually gets arrested.
Right.
And you guys pull no bones when it comes to mentioning names of federal agents and that type of thing.
And
Um,
they're all the
the,
actual names, yes, because
this
they're
is
all
what,
part of the public record.
because I was going to say, was there no blowback from certain of these agents specifically, that didn't seem to like Michael, and Michael didn't seem to like them? One
Right.
specific agent that seemed to have it out for him, um, using real names.
Because they're part of the public record.
Okay.
They're either guys who testified at Michael's trial or somehow in other ways became part of the public record. People who aren't part of the public record are changed their names.
Well, that's fair enough because you don't want these books followed by lawsuits. Um,
No, we
no.
don't. Although it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was, but still, you never know. Some people are litigious just for being litigious. Years can go by,
Tell me
and then
about
all of
it.
a
Yeah,
sudden you get a letter through your letterbox going,
right.
"Do you remember?" And you may not, but that doesn't matter. So take us through the process of writing this particular book. Did you sit down with Michael? Did you do transcriptions, or did he just sort of rattle off memories and then you expanded from that?
Well, firstly, we're in different countries.
Yes.
So it was always going to be a long distance affair. Michael lives in Mexico on the Pacific coast. I was in Israel while writing this book. So firstly, we threw around the idea for several years
Right.
in the odd conversation. And then round about the time of COVID, I had freed up. I'd stopped working as a journalist, and I was free to write the book. And Michael, certain things had to gel in his life, and they had gelled. And so I think right about middle of the COVID period, we started interviewing online. And over the course of about 2 years, I must have got 80 or so hours of recorded conversations, which I then had to edit, pass, and which was quite a lot of work.
Hmm.
Jeremy came in because while I was busy passing this material and trying to figure out what to do with it and uh, whether to approach a publisher, etc. Jeremy phoned me up one day and said, "Hey, Jonathan Ball are interested in your Medjuck book." And I said, "Great, that's cool, but then you and I will do it together. I don't want to do it without you." So we decided to do it together as a co-writing thing where I would do the writing. Jeremy would work with me on a bit of research, certainly on the brainstorming and the organizing of the book, the structure, and he would do the editing because Jeremy was a very, very fine editor.
Hmm.
Um, but unfortunately, we never got there. He was murdered in his home on April the 1st, 2023. And yeah, I had to do the rest alone. And for a couple of weeks, I was in deep despair over his death because Jeremy and I were friends since childhood, and he was by far my closest friend. And then I decided, yeah, I will do it for Jeremy, sort of
Okay.
thing. You know, I don't want to sound kitsch about it, but really
That's what it
that's
was.
how it worked. And
Yeah.
so after a couple of weeks, I got back to writing, and I sat down, and in 9 or 10 months, I did the whole thing.
There must have been a lot of research because if Michael said something to you, you obviously had to fact check it because you can't only tell one side of the story. Writing a novel, I should imagine, is much easier because you can invent characters, your
Right.
characters can do whatever they like, nobody can tell you otherwise. Yet here, if you make one mistake, somebody is bound to pick it up and go, but that didn't actually happen.
Yeah, look, I was lucky in the sense that Michael's case was quite prominent. The ship carrying the hash was busted by the US Navy in international waters, and therefore it was by no means open and shut.
Mm.
Uh, and so his case became part of American case law, and you can look it up today and you will find it. So there. The details about exactly what happened are out there.
Yeah.
The second thing was that Michael and I met in Vancouver in November 2023, and I went through a vast amount of papers that he'd collected or that his family had collected during the course of his trial and imprisonment. And it was all there. I spoke several times with his lawyer, John Markham, who died, unfortunately, just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Um, but I spoke with people who worked with Michael. I spoke with people he was with in jail. So it wasn't difficult to get the stuff.
What was his, Michael is a sort of character, I should imagine, that no matter where he is, and I remember reading in the book about how charismatic he was and how
Mm,
everybody knew him at King David and all
right.
those type of things. And I should imagine it was similar in jail. He would have walked in and gone, Michael's here, let the party begin, type of thing. I don't think he
Yeah,
was
I
all
doubt it.
power.
I doubt it. He was in very rough places.
I know. And that
Um,
was because that particular agent, what I forget his name
no,
now.
I think you're referring to the prosecutor. The prosecutor
Oh, the yes,
really didn't
prosecutor.
like him.
Sorry, no.
Yeah. And he set out to screw Michael, and he succeeded.
He did because every
Um,
time Michael was going to be sent to a reasonable prison, you're
no,
going
no.
back.
This guy stepped in, and he found himself in Florence, Colorado, which
Yeah,
is the home of Supermax, the
yeah,
probably the worst prison in the world, or the most secure prison in the world. So Michael got a very good look at the American penal system
from the inside out, not where he
from
wanted
the
to be.
inside. Yeah.
From $3,000 suits to a prison overall that didn't cost nearly that much.
You got it. Yeah.
He did how long finally on the first stretch?
He was sentenced to 24 years.
Mm.
He did 14 and a half, a
Right.
little less than 15. And then he was released finally after turning state witness against a crooked guard at one of the prisons he was in. So he did 14 and a half, and then just over a year later, he was busted for an entirely different thing entirely in Spain, and he was sentenced to 9 years and did 7.5. So altogether, he did 21, 22 years.
Okay, so but the Spanish prisons seem to be a little less strict about things. I don't think
Yeah, yeah.
they weren't as
Uh,
bad, quite as bad as the American penal system. Although he did have one conjugal visit with his mistress that got a little raunchy. I didn't see that coming, I must admit.
um,
And I don't
yeah.
think the guards watching on the CCTV expected it either.
But they're lucky there were cameras, so they can revisit it whenever they want.
Well, I wonder, I'm amazed that that particular CCTV footage has never popped up on YouTube.
You never know. YouTube's a big place.
What was the best and the worst for you, aside from Jeremy's death? What was the best and worst about writing this book, if there is a best and worst?
Look, writing a book, any book, takes what my grandmother would have called Sitzfleisch in Yiddish,
Yeah.
the ability to sit on your ass. And so that's the most difficult part for me, and for many writers, is just disciplining yourself to spend hour after hour after hour. But otherwise, it was a fun book to write. Michael is a font of stories,
I should imagine.
never shy to tell them. So, yeah, going through 80 hours of recorded conversation,
it's a lot.
to order, that was a lot of work.
Are
But
you,
on the whole, it wasn't a difficult book to write.
you said writing takes discipline. Are you a disciplined writer? Did you wake up at like 6 o'clock every morning, write for 3 hours, or set yourself a word target for the day? And once that it was done, then you could
No,
relax.
I've never been an early morning person, so certainly don't do the getting up at 6. We lucky I got up to do this interview.
Thank you very
And
much.
it wasn't
I do
easy.
appreciate, although it's 9 o'clock in Israel.
Yeah. For me, that's middle of the night. But I work from mid-afternoon right through, to about midnight.
Right.
And I did that. Yeah, I'm pretty disciplined once I get into my
Once you get
stride.
going. And do you write on a computer or do you write with a pen?
No, computer.
Ah.
I have written my first book. I wrote with a pen, and then I thought, come on, God didn't invent a computer for you to write with a pen.
Some
So
writers like the feel of
yeah, I know, and they have special pens, and
yeah.
I don't really like this iconization of writing. Writing's
Yeah.
like anything else, like working in a factory. You just got to do it and get used to it, and hopefully you're fairly good at it.
And then when the edit process comes along and you take you hand your baby over to an editor and it
Right.
comes back with red lines and corrections and why
No,
did you
my
have to
editor
say
was
this?
brilliant. It was originally meant to be Jeremy, of course, as I
Yeah.
said. But then when I finished the book, Jonathan Ball gave me an editor. His name's Alfred Lemaitre, lives in Cape Town. Brilliant editor. Lovely guy, brilliant editor. Really, I owe him everything. And he comes from Montreal, which was Michael's most prominent hash market. So he knew a lot of the background to the story.
Yeah,
Hang on
because
1 second.
yeah. I'm chatting currently with Roy Isacowitz, who is the co-author, together with Jeremy Gordin, of The Extraordinary Life of a Johannesburg Dope Smuggler, and the book is called High Times. It's about Michael Medjuck, who was a hash smuggler. Started off in Canada, although you mentioned now he's moved to Mexico. Was there a reason for not going back to Canada?
Well, he can't go back to the United States. He's been permanently barred from the United States.
Okay.
He can and does go back to Canada, but during his heyday, he invested in a hotel in
Mexico.
a place called Los Cabos in Mexico. And I write in the book about how he got it back after 22 years of imprisonment, where it had sort of fallen into criminal hands.
Yeah.
And it's quite a story. But anyway, he got it back, and he ran that for a few years, and then he sold it. But he's been living there for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. I found the hotel story interesting because it's almost set a crook to catch a crook. And that hotel story could be a book all on its own. It really could, considering how the deal was done. There was little or no paperwork. There were many people involved in that. Yet he got, as you say, he got it back. You write about it, how long it took him to get back. And then I suppose if you have a hotel, why not live in it?
At least for a while.
At
Yeah,
least for a
yeah.
while. It's better than a prison cell, Roy.
I think just about anything is better than the prison cell. And I say that only on the basis of what I've learned from Michael.
Now, you said Michael has a lot of stories and he's very keen to tell them. Did you have to, and I'm using the word edit in parentheses, the conversations, because they went off at a tangent, they weren't pertinent to the main core of your story?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Michael is not a disciplined storyteller.
Right.
He detours a lot. And that was one of the issues, was like untangling the stories and getting them to stand alone
Yeah.
with a beginning and end and stuff like that. Yeah, that was all part of recording conversations and then
Yeah.
later trying to write a book out of them.
Yeah, to make head or tail of some of them, I should imagine, if they weren't linear. How much input did he have into the final edit, though?
Michael came over here last September, and we spent a week going through the final manuscript. He had seen probably 2 versions before that, but we spent a week really nailing down every single thing. So that was his main input. I mean, he had input all the time because virtually every day I would speak with him and say, look, remind me about this, or can you clarify this, or stuff like that. But we sat for a week on the final manuscript to get it right. And an interesting story is that he was here on the morning of 7th of October when the Hamas thing, he was due to fly out that morning, and he woke up to air raid sirens and absolute chaos. So yeah, so he got a bit of an understanding about other aspects of life.
Other sorts of lockdown.
Other sorts of lockdown, correct. Yeah.
In fact, on the 7th of October, I was in Cairo.
Were you?
Yeah.
All right.
Waiting for my wife to come and join me on a holiday, and she just said, "Come home now. I'm not coming up to you." So that's what we did. Yeah. Where to now? So if I was perusing the shelves of the bookshops here, and this is a question I ask of all authors, and you're no different. And would I ever come across you standing in an exclusive books, for want of a better, bookshop and going, oh, look, here's a book by Roy and Jeremy. I wonder how good this is. And then look around to see if anybody has noticed or has recognized you, because you don't feature on the back cover. It's Michael on the back cover with some images. But do you ever sort of move books on shelves in bookshops if you get the opportunity? If you don't like where they've been positioned?
No, never.
You're one of the you're one of the few authors. You know how many people I've spoken to, Roy? How many authors I've spoken to who've moved books? If it's spine forward, they'll turn it face forward. If it's in a South African section, they'll move it to an international section if they don't feel it's in the right place.
No, I don't move book. I remember I live in Israel. I write in English, so my books, one of them has been translated into Hebrew, but other than that, they don't sell here. So I very rarely, I travel a lot and I see them on shelves elsewhere, but I very rarely see my books on shelves.
Okay.
So
well, no. That leads to another question. Will this be translated into any other language, or is it just going to be the English?
Well, that's right now. Jonathan Ball has an agent trying to sell it to American publishers. Michael thinks, probably correctly, that it would make a great Netflix series or something like
I
that.
took one look at this book when reading and thought, why Netflix haven't picked up an option, I don't know, because they make some rubbish stuff, but this would be right up
This
there.
is good stuff. Yeah,
This
look,
is
it
good
would have
stuff.
to be published in the US, I'd imagine, for them to
Oh,
notice it.
okay.
So that's the first. It's just come out. It came out a week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So these things are processes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it will get published in the States, and then hopefully someone will pick it
We'll
up
pick
for.
we'll pick it up. What is next for you? I know that you retired, but do you have another project on the go?
Oh yeah, I haven't been able to write pretty much ever since last October because I fell. You were in Cairo, I was in Portugal during the 7th of October, and a week or two later, I had a very bad fall and broke my shoulder. And I've had a couple of operations, and only in the last month or so have I been able to write. So
Okay.
I've had a period of enforced silence. And now I'm still trying to build up my strength so I can write for, several hours at a time.
Yeah.
I do have a book that I'm beginning now, and another novel, not based on drugs.
Come
And
on, you've got a niche market now, Roy. You can find every major drug dealer in the world and say, listen, I'll do your autobiography for you.
no, I did that once. I was ghostwriter on one book, and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a good experience. So I'm going to stick with my own stuff.
Fair enough. And people don't realize that sitting at a computer can take a lot out of a person. It really and truly
Oh, it's
can.
exhausting.
You know,
And I'm no spring chicken
yeah.
anymore. It's very tiring. Yeah.
I think writing should be an Olympic sport.
You figure? It sounds
Writing.
far too strenuous for me. No,
No, if I mean, it's an endurance sport for certainly because you're sitting for several hours a day. Yes, you can get up
day
to go to
after
the
day
toilet or
after
make
day.
a cup of tea or coffee or something like that. But as you said earlier, you need the discipline. And there's also that large word that looms for all writers, and that's deadline. And publishers can hold you to that. And then it puts a whole different spin on, I'll write tomorrow.
Yeah, no, but remember, I mean, I only started writing after a 6-year career in journalism.
Right.
So the deadlines are no stranger to me.
Well,
There's a lot of things in life I can't do, but I usually do meet deadlines
the
out,
book
out of experience.
Yeah, well, you see, so the one career helps the other. The book is currently available. It's published by Jonathan Ball here in South Africa. Available. I love it when people, I don't know if they still say, available at all good bookstores. It's also
Oh,
available at,
good.
no, it's
Right.
also available at all
So
bad
in the shit
bookstores.
places.
Anywhere, street corners. You can get
Right.
you can get a bag of hash and a book for on special currently if you know the
Absolutely.
right
In fact,
dealer.
that would be a very good packaging idea. Yeah.
I'll speak
Sell
to
it
the
with
guy.
a joint.
Yeah, I'll speak to the guys
Speak
at
to them.
Jonathan Ball on your behalf.
Yeah.
Who
That'd be a
knows?
very good idea.
Yeah, forget bookstores. Now available on every street corner in Johannesburg.
Right.
High times.
From your local peddler.
Yeah, why not indeed? Roy, thank you so much for chatting to me.
Thank you, David.
I wish you all the very best with the book. I look forward to your next one. But I will wait and see how that pans out, and we may get to talk again about that one. So thanks very
Sounds
much. Thank
good.
you for getting up early.
My pleasure.
You can now go back to bed.
Nah, now
now,
I'll continue my day.
now that you're up. This has been
Yeah.
In Conversation
Thanks,
with.
David.
My name is David Batsov, and his name is Roy Isacowitz. I do hope that you enjoyed this chat, and I hope that you go out and buy the book.